I am prepared today to talk on sexism. And it is a continuing series. As those of you who are here next week, I'm doing about 4 special lessons on what is unity's concept on some of these issues that are so much a part of our everyday life. Some of them that we do not talk about on a regular basis, do not always amplify from a spiritual position. And so from time to time, I like to do this. The challenge, of course, is that Sunday lessons are not a time for expanding some of these concepts. And rightfully, this should be done on a whole class basis of at least a semester's work or something, because it is such a big subject. It's one of the most dynamic issues of the human life, sexuality and racism and these other subjects that we're talking about. Last week, religion. All of us are constantly in the scene of the world where people are mixing shoulders with each other and have very definite thoughts about religion. So it's important that we clarify ours. I want to say that, as Dorothy has suggested, it's very easy to step on toes when you're discussing subjects like this. And if you feel that I step on your toe in terms of your own thoughts or feelings today, I encourage you not to lose track of what I'm saying by going off on your hurt toe, because I just may get off your toe before the end of the talk, and then it'll be all okay. But these issues, as I say, are difficult to encapsulate in a few minutes. However, what I want you to feel mostly is, what is the unity? What is a metaphysical view of these subjects? Their precise applications that I may make in some instance here may not be yours exactly, but at the same time, you'll have an understanding of where unity comes from. Now, I've entitled this Unity and Sexism, but actually I wish to expand it a little bit. We'll be talking about unity and sexuality as well. But starting with unity and sexism, I was most interested in looking at my Webster dictionary. I learned a lesson, and that is you should always update your dictionaries. You know, you get a dictionary and you think, well, I mean, after all, the English language hasn't changed much, but it does. And this is what it says about sexism in the particular Webster that I sometimes quote from. It says, prejudice or discrimination against women. Somebody's prejudice against men. I mean, how come we didn't get in there? However, I looked at the date of the publication. It was 1973. And so then I went to my Grolier from my computer, and its inputted was 1995. So I think you'll get a very comprehensive reading on sexism from Grolier. Sexism is an ideology of the superiority of one sex over the other. It's not essentially related to women. It most commonly takes the form of an assumption of male superiority, regarding women as inherently inferior intellectually, psychologically, and physically to man. This view, shared by both men and women, has historically shaped institutions of world society. It has been perpetuated through the acculturation of generations of children with resultant differences between the sexes. Sexism was not effectively challenged until the 20th century with the growth of the militant women's rights movements. Sexism, however, remains a major influence on both conscious and unconscious assumptions in American mass culture. And I thought that was, from my understanding at least, a very fair comprehension of what sexism is, and as it has played a part in the unfolding culture of humanity and continues to play a part. The prejudice is clearly still on the side of an assumption of a male-dominated culture based on some false assumptions, which I say on the basis of what I'm about to share with you as to unity's position. In each of these series of lessons, I will begin from the same basic position in terms of spiritual principle. And in so doing, help you to understand that when things come up in mind, this is the place to start in trying to come up with the spiritual answer on the subject. The place to start is to remind yourself again that you are not a physical being. We are not physical beings, but we are spiritual beings living in a physical dimension, expressing through physical bodies that wear the manifestation of sex. But we are essentially spiritual beings that are all exactly alike. Alike in terms of equipment, not in terms of expression, because this is the wonder of our being, because we believe that we have at least, if not exactly, 12 faculties of mind or spirituality that make up our being. The combinations of 12 are infinite. And therefore, each one of us is incredibly unique in the expression of our sameness in terms of being equipped with qualities such as love, faith, wisdom, understanding, imagination, faith, life, the life faculty, renunciation faculty, the ability to say no, strength, all these faculties that make us up spiritually, exactly the same, we use in different manners. But the fact that we start absolutely the same is a clear stamp, an affirmation of the fact we are equal, no matter what the appearances are, not only sexually, but in every manner. And this will come up again next week, of course. But today, in terms of our maleness or our femaleness, we are, in truth, as spiritual beings, exactly the same. We are equally endowed with God's capacity to live life triumphantly and effectively. We comprehend what has happened, however, in the physical world in a lack of this knowledge, in that we believe very much in the process of evolution of the human spirit here on earth. And we can understand that in the early forms of evolution, humanity looked at itself, both male and female, and said, what is needed most to deal with our physical environment is brute strength, as it was in the days of what we think of as the caveman and the cave woman. And therefore, both sexes highlighted that representative of their race who could go out and do battle and chase and defend themselves from wild elements on a long-term basis, etc. This carried humanity through thousands of years where strength was the mark of success in the world. But then, as we began to move forward and came into particularly the industrial era, where lifestyle changed and it was no longer clearly dependent upon strength, and it shifted to dependent upon intellect in dealing in the so-called industrial world, the business world. And for a long period of time, the old cultural set, as that definition so wonderfully said from Grolier Reggio, it got passed on from children to children, not only at a conscious level, but at an unconscious level of the dominance of the male figure. But clearly, as time has passed, it has been demonstrated that women have an intelligence that is the equal of man's. And so we have prepared ourselves for this 20th century revolution they talked about, where women's rights has said, look, this is the case. It's time we were treated like equals. We understand that, but we are affirming that we need to know that no one who was spiritually enlightened ever had to wait for that revolution to take place. Unfortunately, spiritual enlightenment has come behind all of this. Today, we are on the verge of a spiritual enlightenment of our world, and all of the progress that has been made to bring about an equality of the sexes on a physical basis is being enhanced now. And it will happen extremely rapidly as more people recognize that we are spiritual beings, and we are equal, and that the business of life is not competing in a physical media. It is in developing the qualities of our spirituality in our everyday living. Now, I want to move more into our sexuality by suggesting now that what I've said so far is a clear position of unity and metaphysics in general towards this question of sexuality, sexism, the equality of the sexes. But beyond this, we have to appreciate that sexuality is an incredible power in our world today. Most of you know that the media is incredibly controlled today by sexuality. The books, nobody writes a bestseller hardly without having put in several clearly appealing sexual experiences, because they have found that sells to people. Not only is this true, but we also know from psychological concept that dealing with one's individual sexuality is one of the greatest energy-consuming experiences of the individual. So let me, in helping us just to think about that, make suggestions to you that I cannot prove, though I feel that proof is coming rapidly in terms of why are we here? More of the understanding that we are spiritual beings meant here to grow, as I said. But in terms of, where do we start from? Where are we going afterwards? The answer to most of us seems logically, again, to be reincarnation. As someone said to me going out, they were talking about a little child that was born into their family just this past week. And they said, you cannot believe the personality of this little child. And it's not at all like his brothers and sisters that were already born. And I said, that's right. It sort of helps us to appreciate the reality of the fact we don't start at birth. We come into this life with a ongoing program for soul development. We've been somewhere before, and it's probably been other lives in this dimension, but maybe not in this dimension, but surely other lives. It explains the inequities of how we're born. Some of us are born so loving you don't have to work at it at all. Some of us, like me, you have to work at it real hard. That's what Dorothy says anyway, and some of us come into this world with such a fabulous sense of wisdom, we just don't do bonehead things. Some of us seem to be, wisdom seems to be put on the back boiler, and we're so busy living life, and we're experimenting. We just want to experiment with everything, and we find ourselves having problems with the popular things that make life seem better, like alcohol or drugs or stuff like that, when actually, if we had wisdom in its place, we'd see right through that like psychism is a short circuit to our spirituality, which is what life is really all about, developing these God qualities that are within us. Well, with that background and that sense, it also makes sense. And as I say, the metaphysicians have always affirmed this and done it much on a hearsay basis and in their own intuitive experience. But now we have scientists out there doing talking to people during their near-death experiences and researching reincarnation. Particularly in India, they've had such success with it. We're working little children who clearly have a recognition of another life that they can identify, and they can go, and the scientists have gone there and demonstrated that there was such a person that this little child talked about. In any event, with that in background, that you are entering this life experience for a growth purpose, then it seems very clear that as we come into this life experience, we have made choices. What it is we want to work on. Now, sometimes, my belief, again, this is me talking, my belief is that we make that very consciously, that there is a period before we enter this life experience where we have really thought it through. I want to do this in this life. I want to be challenged by this. I want to be born in this kind of environment because I want that as a background for my soul growth. On the other hand, I believe it's very feasible. Some of us do it unconsciously. That is, things just happen. But they happen according to our consciousness. When I went to college, I remember meeting with the dean and talking about, what do you want to take? Well, frankly, he was doing most of the talking because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so he just sort of guided me but I know my consciousness was still directing that. And I think some of us come into this life like that. However that happens, I would affirm that it seems very pertinent that in terms of our sex that we come into this world, it is not a happenstance. And that whether we came into it way back when again there was this total male dominance and really a cruel, hard life for women, or we come into a more enlightened era now, I believe the choice is very clearly one that we make, because according to our sexuality, life presents us many opportunities and many challenges. I think this is very important for us to know, so that in a couple of ways. First of all, on that basis, I would say that when I look at any one of you in the face, and it's quite clear to every one of you as I look at you that you're either a man or a woman, at the same time, I know, I'm confident in myself that if you're a man this time, you have been a woman sometime. If you're a woman this time, the odds are you've been a man sometime. And so when you have that spiritual background, while you may take a position about the need to transform our concepts of sexism, you no longer have to do it in a militant manner. You men or you women want too much. It's we all together. No one will ever be free to express their full spirituality until there is total equality, until there is a total appreciation of what feminism brings to the world and maleism brings to the world, and realize it is a reflection of what our wholeness, our individual wholeness is meant to be. And fortunately, as I've shared before, I love it today. I marvel at it. I've lived long enough to marvel at it, to see these monster football players out there hugging each other and all. When I remember very well, you didn't touch any guy like that without feeling strange about it. It is happening. We choose our sex. We choose our sexuality, whether we are heterosexual or homosexual. I believe that choice is something, as I say, we've made consciously or unconsciously. Each role that we choose to play offers us a special challenge in life and a special opportunity in life. Those of us who may come into the world as gay individuals have a tremendous challenge, but a glorious opportunity. And when you think about this issue in our world, just appreciate this. One of the most important things for us to gain in life is a sense of our own individual worth and containment, so that we do not have to have the world pat us in the back and saying, "You're wonderful. You know, you look like Madison Avenue. You conduct yourself just so ideally, so that the whole world tells you you're great." But to be someone that generally the culture you've chosen to bring yourself into doesn't hold you that way, it takes strength. And it makes you dig down inside yourself. Now, not all would do this, but those who do and find their own inner security and well-being, what a lesson this incarnation has provided for them. And in every phase of our sexuality, friends, there is a tremendous opportunity for us. I would say in general, in dealing with our sexuality, what we want to constantly know is that as a whole person, we have all these qualities within us. And certainly the master quality is the quality of love. So I have no hesitation to say that for every one of us here, one of the things we are seeking and wanting to learn through our sexuality is to love more. It is easy to express our sexuality not in a format of love at all. You know, I'm always sharing the thought that so-called love songs are not really love songs at all when you listen to them, because they'll say, "Baby, I need you, I want you, I gotta have you." Well, that isn't love, is it? It's something real, all right, but it's not love. And when we stop and think about it, we realize that. Well, it's just when people talk about sexual intercourse, they often will say, "Oh, they were making love. Well, how do you know they were making love? No, they may or may not have been making love, because you see, love has to be consciously brought into the act to elevate the act to what it can be when it's done in love and balanced by wisdom. And when we have the quality of patience in our lives, which is a part of discipline. I mean, this is what is needed so much in the strength of all of us, the ability to be patient and disciplined and wait for our own good to come to us, to not force issues sexually or in other areas of our lives. So you can see how sexuality, because of its dynamics, sexuality is related to our life faculty. I mean, it's right at the nitty gritty. It's the affirmation of beingness. That's why it's such a powerful thing. It needs to be clothed in all the qualities of our being. So the more we understand this, the more we are able to deal with this important thing for each of us. In sort of winding this up, I want to say that in a recent survey that I saw, and you probably have seen it too, they say America's, they're always taking polls about us Americans, and they say America's shifted now. We're no longer worried about taxes and all the other things we've been worried about. What we're worried about now is crime. We're worried about crime. And again, those of you, and all of you here, I know, you think about this and you say, wait a minute, it isn't crime that's the problem. It's what produces criminals that's the problem. And what produces criminals, of course, is the lack of nurturing that is given to our young people in the world today. This is where our crisis is. This is where the crisis is. And the crisis there has come out of the fact that at present, and here I may be stepping on toes, at present, our interest in creating equality for the sexes has been used, has been shifted to support the human interest in physical well-being. And so we find in homes men and women both working, because it's the only way they can enjoy the benefits that our culture allows for us. And therefore the nurturing center that is so important to us has been neglected. And there's no reason for anybody to feel, oh, I know I'm awful. I've been worrying about it for so long. It's okay. It's just recognizing that we need to say, God, what can we do about it? Well, one way that we can do about it is to do what they used to do, and that is to bring someone into the home. It used to be grandparents and all, who provided that nurturing center when parents could not be in the home. That is the answer, that along with our equality recognition, wonderful things are happening. I love meeting a couple I met the other day. He's in the home and she's out working. And that's so great, because her intelligence, her drive, her energy is clearly being fulfilled out there. And he is delighted to cook at home, to be there when the kids come home and do all that. That is great, because it gives us more latitude than we used to have. And it will be great when a couple sit down and they talk to each other and say, now, how are we going to handle this? Do we both going to work when we have children? And okay, if we are, then let's think through what we're going to do about that, because we know that we're not going to have those children unless they can be properly nurtured. Or which one of us really would enjoy being here in the home and work together to make it happen so that it can? I don't know how that's going to work out. I just raise it for your consciousness to know that part of our spiritual recognition of our equality is to also recognize the importance of bringing what was, for many generations, the so-called feminine aspects role was the nurturing of our little ones. Somehow we can make it all happen right, being aware of the need and of this business of sexuality and sexism. We can, as they play our part in consciousness, and some of you on the active front out there in the world, where you are taking a social and political role, you can help to make things happen right. Well, in closing, I return again to say, what is Unity's view about sexism and sexuality? It is all based on a comprehension of our spirituality, as everything is, and knowing that the purpose of life is to grow in the fulfillment of what we have all equally, the attributes, the nature of God. And so engineering our lives, both from a sexism position and a sexuality support position to fulfill that, we will be blessed. Let's close our eyes now and know with me together that even as we are not alone in bringing spirituality into this question, that around the world a tremendous transformation is indeed taking place. That as the song we sang as we opened our service today said, that men and women shall stand together, freeborn, knowing, loving, respecting each other's freedom, equality, and the likeness of a path that we walk together. Blessed Presence, we give thanks that we feel the power of your energy moving to bless this world with the enlightenment of our oneness in you, of our maleness and our femaleness. Thank you, God. Amen.